Since the world saw former Baltimore Ravens running back Ray Rice hit his then fiancée in a surveillance video, domestic violence has been a topic of public discussion more than ever before. One myth is that domestic violence is rare, but that is not the case. The Centers for Disease Control report that 27% of women and 12% of men have experienced sexual or physical violence by a current or former partner, and that 10% of all homicides are related to domestic violence. Here to share what she knows is Becca Fisher, the executive director of Laramie's SAFE Project. Becca, what is the SAFE Project?
The SAFE Project is a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to advocate for and empower survivors of stalking, intimate partner, family, and sexual violence. And our education and awareness efforts are focused on prevention and improved community response. And so we're probably best known for our shelter services. We provide 24-hour crisis hotline services, also court accompaniment for folks who need orders of protection to have abusers or people who have otherwise assaulted or hurt them to stay away from them. We respond to the hospital and provide support when people are having issues. We refer to community resources throughout Laramie and Albany County to get people connected to the things that they need to help them get out of abusive situations. And we just do general community education to raise awareness of these issues and hopefully prevent them from happening.
Do you think that the discussion of domestic violence, perhaps its visibility and understanding of what it is has changed much over the last 10, 20 years?
The internet, just like with any issue, has been a great spearhead for getting people talking about what it looks like. In the aftermath of the Ray Rice situation last fall, Twitter kind of exploded with the hashtag of why I stayed, because there was a lot of individuals asking the question of Janae Rice, like, why is she staying in this situation? If it were me, I would have just left. And so a lot of women survivors of domestic violence came out and talked about their stories and how it's more complicated than just walking away.
Mm-hmm. And it's also not just one instance of, say, a man, because it's usually a man hitting his partner. It's more than that. It's more like it's a lot more. It's psychological in many ways too. Can you describe what domestic violence really is?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, to clarify, anyone can definitely be a victim of domestic violence. We serve male survivors also. And when we're talking about domestic violence, what I really think of is a pattern of behavior over time that's used to gain and maintain power and control over an intimate partner. And so that can look like emotional abuse, so just general, degrading someone, putting them down, eroding their self-esteem. It can also look like both physical and emotional isolation. That's definitely prominent here in Wyoming, where there's a lot of rural areas. If you don't have access to an automobile or maybe cell service, you're out on a ranch or in some rural area, it can be difficult to access resources. Emotional isolation from friends or family or some sort of support system so that you don't have folks to reach out to. It can look like coercion and threats. So kind of manipulative behavior. If you didn't behave this way, I wouldn't have to do these things to you. I'm justified in treating you this way. Or if you don't do what I want, then I'm going to hurt you or hurt the pets or hurt the kids. Children are also a big factor in a lot of these relationships, and so using the children as a tool to gain control over someone is a tactic that we see often. So yeah, it's definitely more complex than just an isolated incident when, you think of it got heated and things got out of control and maybe one thing led to another. That's not what I usually see in the work that I do.
You started to mention some reasons why perhaps a person would stay involved in an abusive relationship. They feel responsible for the well-being of children and the animals, or many other reasons.
Right. Yeah, it's so complicated. I think that the first thing to know is that abusers aren't abusive 100% of the time, and they're certainly not abusive immediately. And so there's a dynamic of love and care for your partner, and you've built a life with this person, and you may be married to them and have kids and have years invested and a similar social circle, and it would be giving up all of your friends. And so that in and of itself is very powerful. But then when you consider financial abuse, and so whether or not the individual leaving would have access to any sort of money or resources when they leave the relationship, also it's a very real threat that we hear about often, that if you leave you'll never see the kids again. I'll get an attorney and I'll make sure that I get sole custody, and you'll never see them again. And that's pretty terrifying to a lot of people. There's also an element of just fear. And so we know that statistically the most dangerous time for someone leaving a violent relationship is when leaving or immediately after they've left. That's when the most domestic violence homicides occur, and also you see an increase in just the severity of physical abuse and sexual assault at that time. And so people are just afraid that the threats that have been made in the relationship will become a reality. And then the toll of the emotional abuse that happens during the relationship is very powerful too. After you've heard over a period of months or years that no one else will ever love you, you're not worth anything, you have no value, you do start to believe it. And so that can be a huge barrier as well.
So what's the best thing that a person can do? I guess timing, realization, feeling strong enough to take action is the first thing. You can't force anyone to change their situation.
Right. And so, there's a few things that I think that a person on the outside, whether that's a friend or a family member or a colleague or whomever that suspects that someone's in a domestic violence relationship, can do. And I mean, the simplest thing is just believe and validate. Often, again, due to the isolation, people feel really alone, and that they may feel crazy, as if, what's happening to them is somehow not real because of the elements of abuse that are occurring. And so just to have someone say, I believe you, I know this is happening, there are resources available. If and when you're ready, I'd be happy to support you in accessing those resources, I think can really go a long way.
Is there a place where women who maybe are not in Laramie can go to start?
Yeah, I think the best option for the state of Wyoming is the Wyoming Coalition Against Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. Their website is wyomingdvsa.org, and they have a list of all of the programs throughout the state. There's one in each county, providing a wide variety of resources, some of which that I talked about earlier in the interview.
Becca Fisher, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.